The galactic conquerors, the Krelther, arrived in the Sol system with the confidence of a species that had never known defeat. Their fleet, a sprawling armada of sleek, menacing ships, cast long shadows over Earth as they descended into orbit. The Krelther had spent centuries subjugating civilizations across the galaxy, their reputation as the universe's most feared species preceding them. To them, humanity was just another primitive race to be added to their empire. High Commander Zorth, the ruthless leader of the Krelther, stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing at the blue-green planet below. He sneered at the thought of these fragile beings daring to resist. Through a galaxy-wide broadcast, Zorth issued his demand: unconditional surrender. He gave humanity 1 hour to comply, warning that any defiance would be met with utter annihilation. The Krelther were a species built for conquest. Their technology was unmatched, their military strategies flawless, and their resolve unshakable. They had encountered countless civilizations, each falling before them like dominoes. To the Krelther, humanity was no different. They saw Earth's fractured nations, its limited spacefaring capabilities, and its lack of unified planetary defense as signs of weakness. Zorth scoffed at the idea of resistance. "These humans are insects," he declared to his officers. "They will crumble like the others." The Krelther's arrogance was their greatest strength and their greatest blind spot. They had never faced a species like humanity, and they didn't realize it until it was too late. When the hour passed, Earth's leaders delivered their response, a resounding refusal. The United Nations, speaking on behalf of all nations, declared that humanity would not bow to tyranny. Zorth was stunned. No species had ever dared to defy him so openly. His confusion quickly turned to rage. "Destroy one of their outposts," he ordered. "Let them see the cost of their defiance." A Krelther warship targeted a remote research station on Mars, obliterating it in a single blast. The message was clear: resistance was futile. But humanity's response was not what the Krelther expected. Instead of fear, there was defiance. Instead of submission, there was resolve. The destruction of the outpost galvanized humanity, uniting them in a way the Krelther could not comprehend. Determined to crush humanity's spirit, Zorth ordered a ground invasion. A small force of Krelther soldiers descended upon Earth, expecting no resistance. They marched through the streets of a coastal city, their advanced armor and weapons making them feel invincible. But humanity was ready. The Krelther were met with a storm of guerrilla tactics. Snipers picked off soldiers from rooftops. Explosives hidden in the streets tore through their ranks. Civilians, armed with nothing but makeshift weapons, fought with ferocity that stunned the invaders. The Krelther had expected to dominate. Instead, they found themselves in a fight for survival. By the end of the day, the Krelther forces were forced to retreat, their confidence shaken. Zorth, watching from orbit, felt the first flicker of doubt. These humans were not like the others. They were something else entirely, and the Krelther were about to learn why. The Krelther's initial success was swift and brutal. Within days of their invasion, they captured major cities across Earth, their advanced technology and overwhelming firepower allowing them to dominate the battlefield. High Commander Zorth watched from his flagship as his forces established control over key strategic points. Broadcasts of their victories were sent across the galaxy, a reminder to all species of the Krelther's invincibility. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, something began to shift. The humans, though outmatched, refused to surrender. Their defiance was not just a matter of pride. It was a testament to their unyielding spirit. The Krelther had expected humanity to crumble under the weight of their oppression. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that grew stronger with every defeat. The resistance began in the shadows. Civilians, armed with nothing but their wits and whatever weapons they could scavenge, launched hit-and-run attacks on Krelther patrols. Farmers turned their fields into minefields, and city dwellers used the ruins of their homes to set deadly traps. The Krelther, accustomed to fighting armies, were unprepared for an enemy that fought without rules or boundaries. Every corner of Earth became a potential battlefield, and every human a potential soldier. The Krelther's confidence began to waver as their losses mounted. They had come to conquer, but they were finding it increasingly difficult to hold what they had taken. One of the most striking examples of humanity's resilience came in the form of a small group of resistance fighters who infiltrated a Krelther supply depot. Using stolen uniforms and forged credentials, they slipped past the guards and made their way to the heart of the facility. Their mission was simple: steal whatever technology they could and bring it back to human scientists. The operation was risky, but the potential rewards were worth it. The team managed to escape with a trove of advanced weapons and communication devices, though not without casualties. The stolen technology was quickly reverse-engineered, giving humanity a fighting chance. For the first time, the Krelther found themselves facing an enemy that could match their technological edge. As the resistance grew, so did the stories of human bravery. Tales of ordinary people performing extraordinary acts spread like wildfire, inspiring others to join the fight. A schoolteacher in Berlin led a group of children to safety through a war-torn city. A mechanic in Mumbai rigged a Krelther transport vehicle to explode, taking out an entire patrol. A nurse in New York used her knowledge of medicine to treat wounded fighters, saving countless lives. These stories became symbols of hope, proof that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity would not be broken. The Krelther, for all their power, could not understand what drove these people to such lengths. They had never encountered a species that fought not just for survival, but for the very idea of freedom. High Commander Zorth, once so confident in his victory, began to feel the first stirrings of doubt. His officers reported increasing resistance across the planet, and the once steady stream of victories had slowed to a trickle. Zorth's frustration grew as he realized that humanity was not like the other species he had conquered. They were unpredictable, resourceful, and utterly relentless. In a rare moment of introspection, Zorth wondered if he had underestimated them, but it was too late to turn back. The Krelther had committed to this war, and Zorth knew that failure was not an option. He ordered a full-scale assault, determined to crush humanity's spirit once and for all. What he didn't realize was that humanity's spirit was unbreakable, and the Krelther were about to learn that the hard way. The tide of the war began to turn as humanity's ingenuity and determination came to the forefront. Armed with the stolen Krelther technology, human scientists and engineers worked around the clock to develop new weapons and strategies. The once insurmountable gap between the two species began to narrow. The Krelther, accustomed to fighting enemies who relied on brute force, were unprepared for humanity's creativity. Human forces launched a coordinated counteroffensive, targeting the Krelther supply lines and communication networks. Strikes were precise and devastating, leaving the invaders reeling. For the first time, the Krelther found themselves on defensive, their once unstoppable advance grinding to a halt. The Krelther's frustration grew as their losses mounted. High Commander Zorth, desperate to regain the upper hand, ordered increasingly brutal reprisals against human populations. Cities that resisted were bombarded from orbit, and entire regions were declared free fire zones. But these tactics only strengthened humanity's resolve. The more the Krelther tried to break their spirit, the more determined humans became to fight back. The invaders began to realize that they were not just fighting an army, they were fighting an idea that no amount of firepower could destroy. The Krelther's morale began to waver as they faced an enemy that refused to be broken. Amid the chaos, a new symbol of hope emerged. Captain Elena Reyes, a decorated soldier and natural leader. Reyes became the face of humanity's resistance. Her daring raids on Krelther positions and her unwavering courage inspired both soldiers and civilians alike. Under her command, human forces scored several key victories, including the liberation of a major city that had been under Krelther control for months. Reyes' leadership was not just about tactics. It was about reminding humanity of what they were fighting for. Her speeches, broadcast across the planet, became rallying cries for a species determined to survive. Even some Krelther soldiers, disillusioned by the brutality of their leaders, began to question their loyalty. The Krelther's propaganda machine, once so effective, began to falter. Their broadcasts of invincibility were met with footage of human victories and acts of bravery. The galaxy watched as humanity, a species once considered weak and divided, stood united against a seemingly unstoppable foe. The Krelther's reputation as the universe's most feared species began to erode. Zorth, watching from his flagship, felt a growing sense of unease. He had always believed that fear was the ultimate weapon, but humanity was proving him wrong. They were not afraid, they were angry, and that anger was a force more powerful than anything the Krelther had ever faced. As the Krelther's grip on Earth loosened, Zorth was forced to make a difficult decision. He ordered a retreat from key territories, consolidating his forces in orbit. It was a humiliating move for a species that had never known defeat, but Zorth had no other choice. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted. Humanity, once on the brink of extinction, was now a formidable adversary. The Krelther had come to conquer, but they were finding it increasingly difficult to hold what they had taken. And as they regrouped, they began to realize that they were not just fighting for victory. They were fighting for their survival. The humans had shown them something they had never seen before, the unbreakable will of the species that refused to be conquered. The Krelther, desperate to regain control, made their final gambit. High Commander Zorth, his pride wounded and his forces stretched thin, ordered the deployment of a planet-killing weapon. The device, capable of rendering Earth uninhabitable, was their ultimate trump card. Zorth believed that by threatening humanity's very existence, he could force their surrender. The weapon was brought to the edge of Earth's atmosphere, its activation sequence initiated. The Krelther fleet formed a protective barrier around it, daring humanity to try and stop them. Zorth issued one final ultimatum: surrender or face annihilation. But humanity's response was not fear, it was defiance. They would not bow, even in the face of extinction. Captain Elena Reyes, now a symbol of humanity's unyielding spirit, volunteered to lead the mission to disable the weapon. It was a suicide mission, but Reyes knew it was the only chance her species had. A small team of volunteers, each aware of the risks, joined her. Using a stolen Krelther shuttle, they infiltrated the enemy fleet, slipping past their defenses with a combination of skill and luck. The mission was a race against time, with the weapon's activation countdown ticking away. Reyes and her team fought their way to the core of the device, facing overwhelming odds. The battle was brutal and the cost was high. By the time they reached the control panel, only Reyes and two others remained. With seconds to spare, they managed to disable the weapon, but not without sacrifice. Reyes, gravely injured in the final moments, ensured the mission's success before succumbing to her wounds. The failure of their ultimate weapon was a devastating blow to the Krelther. Zorth, watching from his flagship, felt a sense of dread he had never known. He had always believed that fear and power were the keys to victory, but humanity had shown him something else: the strength of unity, the power of sacrifice, and the unbreakable will to fight for what mattered most. For the first time, Zorth questioned the very foundation of his beliefs. He realized that humanity could not be conquered, not because they were stronger or more advanced, but because they were willing to endure anything to protect their home and their freedom. In a moment of clarity, Zorth made a decision that would change the course of the war. He ordered a full retreat, signaling the end of the Krelther's campaign against Earth. As the Krelther fleet withdrew from the Sol system, humanity began to rebuild. The cost of the war had been immense, but the victory was worth it. Earth, though scarred, was free. The stories of bravery and sacrifice, of ordinary people rising to extraordinary challenges, became the foundation of a new era. Humanity, once divided, emerged from the war stronger and more united than ever. They took their place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as a beacon of hope and resilience. The galaxy, once dominated by fear, began to see a new possibility. A future where strength was measured not by power, but by the courage to stand against it. The Krelther, humbled and forever changed, carried the lessons of their defeat back to their empire. They spread the word. Humans cannot be conquered. Their unyielding spirit, their capacity for sacrifice, and their refusal to bow to tyranny made them the universe's most feared species. And as humanity looked to the stars, they knew that their greatest strength was not their technology or their numbers. It was their indomitable will. The Krelther had come to conquer, but they had left with something far more valuable: the understanding that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. And humanity had proven, beyond any doubt, that they would never stop fighting.